In Kyiv today, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky delivered a pointed message to Moscow, declaring that Russia had failed to destabilize Moldova. His words came just hours after Moldova's pro-European ruling party secured a decisive parliamentary victory, a victory that, according to Zelensky, represents more than just a national milestone. It is also proof, he said, that the Kremlin's tactics of disinformation, political pressure and covert meddling can be resisted. Speaking to reporters, Zelensky congratulated Moldova's president, Maia Sandu, for withstanding months of pressure and interference. He recalled the early morning call he made to her after the results were announced. Then he said, in his own words, "Russia's subversive influence will not spread farther into Europe. And I spoke today in the morning with Maia Sandu. I congratulated her. Russia failed to destabilize Moldova, even after spending huge resources to undermine it and to corrupt whoever they could." Those remarks framed the day's developments as part of a wider struggle, one in which the security and democratic direction of Europe's eastern frontier is still being contested. To understand the significance of Zelensky's statement, it is worth recalling Moldova's difficult recent history. The small ex-Soviet republic has for years been caught between its aspiration to join the European Union and its vulnerability to Russian pressure. Moscow has used energy supplies, propaganda networks and political operatives to keep Chisinau within its orbit. In past elections, pro-Russian parties often succeeded in exploiting economic grievances and ethnic divisions. But this time, despite high-stakes campaigning and what Western intelligence services describe as well-funded attempts to sway the vote, the Moldovan electorate opted for a government committed to European integration. For many in Kyiv, this result represents a strategic breakthrough. Since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Moldova has played a delicate role, sheltering tens of thousands of refugees while facing its own internal challenges. Russian attempts to provoke unrest through protests, online disinformation, and covert financing of political groups have been documented repeatedly. Yet the Moldovan government, led by Maia Sandu, pressed ahead with reforms, improved election security, and maintained its pro-EU stance, measures that analysts say helped blunt Moscow's influence. Zelensky's congratulatory message, therefore, had a dual purpose. It was both a note of solidarity to a neighbour and a warning to the Kremlin. For Ukraine's leadership, Moldova's electoral outcome sends a signal that the narrative of inevitable Russian dominance in the region is losing its power. It also demonstrates that hybrid tactics, combining propaganda, corruption, and the threat of force, can be countered when democratic institutions are reinforced and citizens remain committed to their country's chosen path. President Sandu, speaking after the victory, described the vote as a reaffirmation of Moldova's commitment to a European future. In Chisinau, celebrations were marked not only by jubilation, but also by a sense of relief that, despite economic hardship and relentless outside pressure, the electorate stood firm. European leaders, including European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, hailed the result as, in her words, a historic choice for Europe, promising to continue support for Moldova's reforms, energy independence and cybersecurity. Such international backing, many believe, will be critical as Moldova works to modernise its economy and shield itself from renewed external meddling. In Kyiv, the development is being interpreted through the lens of the ongoing war. Ukrainian officials argue that every failure of Russian influence in neighbouring countries reduces the Kremlin's capacity to destabilise the wider region. It also helps secure the political rear of Ukraine itself, making cross-border cooperation in areas like energy, logistics and security more reliable. Some Ukrainian commentators have called the Moldovan election a silent victory for the entire Eastern European democratic project. Still, challenges remain. Moldova's economy is fragile, heavily reliant on remittances and vulnerable to fluctuations in energy prices. The pro-Russian opposition, though weakened, retains significant support in some regions and could try to capitalise on public frustration over slow reforms or economic strains. Experts warn that Russian information campaigns are unlikely to stop and may adapt to new conditions, targeting not only Moldova, but also Ukraine and other neighbouring countries. Zelensky himself acknowledged that vigilance is essential. that success in one election does not mean the end of Moscow's attempts to influence politics beyond its borders. For ordinary citizens in both Moldova and Ukraine, these political shifts have tangible meaning. In the streets of Chisinau, some voters told reporters they were determined to protect the hard-won freedoms of the past decade and saw EU membership as the best safeguard against instability. In Kyiv, many interpreted the news as a morale boost at a time when their own country continues to fight to preserve its sovereignty. The shared sense is that each democratic advance in the region is also a step toward long-term peace and security. Policy analysts note that this episode highlights the importance of coordination between regional partners. Over the past year, Kyiv and Chisinau have increased intelligence sharing, coordinated border security, and jointly appealed to the EU for stronger cyber defence measures. According to these experts, such cooperation, together with support from European institutions, has made it more difficult for external actors to disrupt the political process. Looking at the broader picture, Zelensky's remarks serve as a reminder that Europe's contest with Russia is not confined to the battlefield. It is also being waged in the spheres of public opinion, governance, and economic policy. The Moldovan case suggests that, with resilience and sustained international backing, smaller democracies in the region can withstand and even repel such pressure. As the conflict in Ukraine grinds on, stories like Moldova's offer a measure of hope. They suggest that the Kremlin's reach is not limitless and that democratic societies, even under strain, can push back successfully. Zelensky's emphasis on this point, that Moscow spent huge resources, yet still failed to sway Moldova, underscores his belief that determination and solidarity matter as much as military strength in defending Europe's future. In conclusion, the day's events in Kyiv and Chisinau underline a central theme of today's geopolitical landscape, that the struggle for democracy in Eastern Europe is ongoing, but not one-sided. Where local leadership is committed to reform, citizens participate actively, and international partners stay engaged, the tools of destabilization can be blunted. For Ukraine's president, congratulating his Moldovan counterpart was therefore not only a gesture of neighbourly goodwill, but also an affirmation that the region's democratic trajectory remains intact. As he said once more during his address today, Russia's subversive influence will not spread farther into Europe. Whether that prediction holds will depend on the continued resolve of countries like Moldova and on the willingness of Europe as a whole to support them. But for now, the election in Chisinau stands as a case study in how determination, transparency, and solidarity can frustrate the designs of those who seek to undermine democratic choice. Reporting from Kyiv, this has been your in-depth look at a story that blends frontline conflict, political resilience, and the enduring contest over Europe's democratic future.